Let's start this section by defining functional interfaces. A functional interface is an interface with only a single abstract method. So earlier we talked about the comparable interface. This interface has a single abstract method called compare_to. So this is a functional interface. We also talked about the comparator interface. That is a functional interface as well. Now in this video, I'm going to create a functional interface from scratch. We're going to use this functional interface throughout this section. So in this package, lambdas, I'm going to add a new class. Let's call this printer and change the kind to interface. So this is the interface of a printer. In one implementation, we may want to print on the terminal. In another implementation, we may want to talk to an actual printer. So we could have different implementations of this interface. Now, what operations do we need here? We need a single method for printing a message. So void print message. Now we have an interface with a single abstract method. So this is a functional interface. Now, in the second part of this series, I told you that in the recent years, Java introduced the concept of default methods in interfaces. These default methods can have implementation. So we can have a default method like this, default void print twice, which takes a message and prints it twice. So we can have code, we can have implementation in an interface. Now, I told you that in my opinion, this is a bad approach that the Java team has taken because interfaces should not have implementation. They should only be used as contracts. But that aside, what I want to point out here is that this interface has two methods. One of them is a default method with implementation. The other is an abstract method. This interface is still a functional interface because it has a single abstract method. So it doesn't matter if we have many default or even static methods in our interfaces. As long as we have a single abstract method, we refer to that interface as a functional interface. Now, let me delete this ugly default method. All right. So let's go ahead and implement this interface in a class. I'm going to add a new class called console printer. In this implementation, we're going to print on the console or terminal. So let's have this class implement the printer interface. Here we're going to add a print statement and print this message. Pretty straightforward, right? Now, back to our demo class. Here I'm going to create a static method, public static. I'm using static so I can easily call it from this other static method. It doesn't have to be static. So public static void greet. This method needs a printer. So here we're going to talk to the printer interface. We don't care about the implementation. We are programming to an interface, okay? So printer. Then we call printer.print. And here we can say hello world. Now, in our show method, I'm going to call the greet method. Here we need to pass an object that implements the printer interface. So we can use our console printer object. Now, when we run this program, we see the hello world message. So pretty straightforward. Now, sometimes we don't want to explicitly create a class to implement an interface because this requires writing a bit of code. Sometimes we may not want to reuse this class. In the next video, I'm going to show you how to use anonymous inner classes for this purpose.